Never has a more delicate piece of fabric graced my forehead quite like this. The ninja head ties are in. I finally have my hair out of my face, and the first one has to be dedicated to my New York Mets. I think I caught a little snot there. Welcome to May 2020, the month of remasters. This afternoon, we got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and 1. Why did I say that backwards? But they're both getting remastered. Are you kidding me? These games look excellent, and they're $40. You got all the original skaters, you got the soundtrack. Oh my God. Look, 5-year-old me freaking out right now. I still have my original copy. I still got it. I love this game. I was just playing it a couple of weeks ago, so I'm hyped for this classic to come back. And it appears, ladies and gentlemen, that another classic is on the way. Classic, fan favorite, I don't know. Look, the game's really good. So let's get into Mafia. The Mafia series has been dormant since 2016 with the release of Mafia 3. This was a game that had a wonderful, bold story that really surprised me in a lot of ways, as has the rest of the Mafia series, but this one in particular tackled some really tough subjects with a certain sense of delicacy, and I really appreciated what Hangar 13 did with the franchise. However, when it came to the gameplay loop, I found it a bit repetitive. It wasn't that it was not fun, it's just that after the 10th, 15th, 20th, and so on hours of the game, it really starts to wear you down, and all you do care about is the story, which is doing all of the heavy lifting. Now, the Mafia Twitter account has been doing something a bit peculiar as of late. As you can see on screen, we have respect, power, family. Day in, day out, we have a new tweet. What do they mean? They have something to do with Mafia, of course, but more importantly is the fact that they are tweeting. I know it sounds weird, but take a look at this. The last time the Mafia Twitter account sent out a tweet was in 2018, in August, when Mafia 3 was free on PS Plus. Outside of that, this account has been dormant for a very long time. So it reactivating is very curious indeed. 2K does have a history with this. Many years ago, we saw them actually create a BioShock Twitter account out of nowhere, obviously because they were anticipating making a brand new BioShock game, but also BioShock the Collection was announced a little bit afterwards. Now, these tweets aren't just me speculating. There are two concrete pieces of information suggesting that the Mafia series is returning in the form of remasters and possibly Mafia 4. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. For now, let's look at some trademarks that were registered. Two of the trademarks are for Mafia, and their respective text-based logos only differ in typography. The first one is actually identical to the font used for the first two installments of the series. The second one is completely different and without any description. Both are possibly placeholders to lock in stylized marks for when the trademarks are updated down the road, and at least one of them sparks the existence of Mafia 4. So with the logo that was trademarked for the first two entries, I'd imagine at least a Mafia 2 remaster is on the way. I would love to see Mafia 1 remastered. I actually never played this one, and I kind of regret that because I remember many years ago, I was streaming Mafia 2, and there was a certain mission in the game, I won't spoil it, but it had to do with Mafia 1, and I remember saying on stream, oh, I don't really care for this mission. There's nothing really interesting about it. It feels throwaway. And they're like, well, you didn't play Mafia 1 because it's actually very crazy what happened. Speaking of Mafia 2, this also received a brand new trademark with its logo attached, one that I think a lot of us are familiar with. So there has been Mafia activity between the Twitter account, the trademarks, but sometimes trademarks are just registered for protection of the properties to make sure no one can come in and take them or whatever. So does this really confirm that a game's happening? No, but this is here the icing on the cake, and what really tells us Mafia is absolutely returning very soon. Mafia 2 and Mafia 3 definitive editions listed by Ratings Board. This information was discovered on the Take-Two Asia PTE. And as we can see here, there are copies of Mafia 2 listed for the PS4 and Xbox One. Those are versions that currently don't exist as far as we know. And there is a Mafia 3 Complete Edition listed as well. Now, I found this strange when it came to Mafia 3. Mafia 2 makes sense. I think that's like the peak of the series. Mafia 2 is one of my favorite stories of all time. It just ends on this insane cliffhanger. And it's not that Mafia 3 is bad. I don't think they shouldn't bring it back. It just feels like This was something that should have happened in 2018. Why are they doing it now in 2020? But still, my focus in today's video is the return of Mafia 2. Because if they're doing a definitive edition, to me, that speaks more to them changing content. And we've seen that a bit with remasters as well as remaster rumors. So let's talk about an actual remaster happening right now called Nier Replicant. I know this may be a bit more niche for you guys, but I am a lover of the Nier series. And when Nier came out in 2010, it had kind of clunky combat, it had a really good story, but combat was definitely not the high point of the series. And then Automata came along and they teamed up with Platinum Games to create a beautiful story alongside this elegant combat system that was also very flashy, as Platinum Games is known for. But now we have this remaster coming out that is apparently going to rework the combat entirely to be more like Automata. They're adding new characters, they're adding more bits to the story, they're obviously shaping up the visuals. So there's a lot more going into this, where they were calling it a remaster, but it's more like that definitive edition. Now, this is 2K behind it, so I don't know how much I can really expect out of them. They certainly have the money, but why I wanted to see if Mafia 2 would have additional features is because the only lacking part of Mafia 2, in my opinion, is that the open world activities are barren. It is a play space for you to go from mission to mission of the main story. You can do side things like collect cars and bring them back to the garage and collect money and whatnot, but that's not really fun. I want side quests, I want things to do within the city, and if they added that on top of that amazing story, that game would be easily S tier. No doubt about it. So that's why when I saw the words definitive edition, it's more than likely just a touched up Mafia 2 story. I don't think 2K feels comfortable investing in it because Mafia 3 underperformed both commercially and critically, but it would be awesome to see the best game in the franchise, as far as I'm concerned, get an upgrade like that. Now, since we're talking about Mafia, you may be wondering, where are the homies at from Hangar 13, the people who have been handling the Mafia franchise? It's been so long since we've heard from them. So let's take a look at an older article from Kotaku by Jason Schreier. This was one of his first scoops on Game Crunch, and it focuses on Hangar 13. I picked out some particular parts to highlight the status of the studio at the point in time this was created, which was like a 2017 window. I imagine things have changed, but they've also been so insanely quiet that it's very hard to tell, so let's get into it. One of the things that this article highlights is the troubled development of Mafia 3. As we can see here, they highlight that a lot of key decisions were made far too late into the game, which is why a lot of its gameplay was hindered. In fact, the article also noted that no one at the studio was particularly surprised by the gameplay complaints. They were very aware of what they were shipping. So on top of that, we also had fights, technological issues, and other roadblocks that led to the Mafia 3 team crunching. And the article also notes that this led to a dip in morale within the studio because the game wasn't succeeding. It didn't look that great. There was crunch going on, something that's a very common practice, sadly, in our industry. So this game was hurting, and so was the studio. It wasn't until mid-2017 that the studio faced a series of layoffs, and then February 2018, Hangar 13 faced even more layoffs, to highlight once again that Mafia 3 was kind of a complete failure, which really stinks because I love the story in that game. It is a very good story. It's just that it's stuck in an open world that, sort of like with Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Origins, you have to play the side content that sometimes may not be your cup of tea. So you've got to just get through that to get to the stuff that you really are caring about at that time. What's even more neat is that the article highlights that their next game was supposed to be a Berlin spy game, but that's obviously no longer in development, and so they were bouncing between that, Mafia 4. So the studio was in a state of flux, and things are up in the air now. We don't even know if Hangar 13 is actually handling the definitive edition for Mafia 2 or Mafia 3. I imagine it's an outside studio, and if they've decided to go ahead and bring back remasters of these games, it's either A, a test from 2K to see how much do people care about Mafia nowadays and determine going forward if they should release another Mafia game, or B, they are planning on releasing a new Mafia game within the next, we'll say, 12 months, and because of that, they want to get Mafia back in people's brains, so re-release some of these older games. I would probably go with point A, but the main reason I'm making this video is because I'm such a huge fan of Mafia 2. I've replayed that game so many times, and I remember the way I got the game. My dad came home from work, and just the place he had worked at came into a bunch of video games, and so he brought home a stack, said, hey, do any of these interest you? And I saw Mafia 2 and I was like, oh, Mafia game, that'd be interesting. I tried it out and man, I was in love. So I have a fond memory discovering that game and being surprised by it. I think that works for a lot of us in that way, where we're just totally caught off guard with games. But Vito Scaletta's story is one that I cherish near and dear to my heart, and I think a lot of people would really enjoy it if they haven't played it yet. So keep your eye out for Mafia 2 to finally return. It's such a wonderful game. No disrespect to Mafia 3, I just think 2 is much more superior. So that'll do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think of Mafia finally returning? Let me know in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all of the patrons who continue to show that love. You guys are helping out during this tough time, and I hope that my content is returning the favor in some way, shape, or form. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.